So, you wanna know what happened to all your healers when Dawntrail came out? Well, look no further, for all will soon be revealed. We'll begin with White Mage. So, below level 90, White Mage has only seen one change in Ethereal Shift, a new movement ability, which has a 60-second cooldown. It allows you to dash forward 15 yams and looks pretty cool. So now Sage isn't the only healer with an actual movement ability. If we look past level 90, we can see the level 92 trait, Enhanced Presence of Mind, which upgrades Presence of Mind to give you 3 stacks of Sacred Sight upon use, which allows the execution of Glare 4, 3 times. Glare 4 being a GCD with 640 potency to use in your damage phase. At level 94, like all healers do, they will get the Enhanced Swift Cast trait, which reduces the cast time of Swift Cast from 60 seconds to 40 seconds. And they'll also receive the White Magic Mastery trait, which increases potencies of Glare, Dia, and Blood Lilies. At level 96, you'll get an upgrade to Medica 2, called Medica 3, which increases its regen potency from 150 to 175. At level 98, you get Enhanced Terragramation, which gives it 2 charges, which is pretty good. You no longer have to feel bad whenever you leave it off cooldown. I don't think anyone did, but it's still pretty good. It means you can save it for when you actually need it. And finally, at level 100, you get Enhanced Temperance, which is not a buff to Temperance itself, but rather Temperance now grants Divine Grace upon use, which allows the execution of your new level 100 ability, Divine Caress, which grants a shield to all party members for 10 seconds. And when that effect expires, grants a regen for 15 seconds. A regen stronger than your Medica 3 no less, at 200 potency. And that's all White Mage is going to see, so not too many changes there. Glare 4 will probably be the most prominent thing to mention, and of course your new movement ability. Let's move on to Scholar. Scholar has no changes pre-level 90, so we can move straight on to the post-level 90 abilities. At level 92, you also get a new damaging attack, Baneful Impaction, an off-GCD dot that can be used after using Change Stratagem. Pretty powerful dot as well, and it will be used in all the damage phases. At level 94, just like White Mage and the other healers, you will get Enhanced Swift Cast to reduce Swift Cast from 60 seconds to 40 seconds, and you'll also get Tactician's Mastery, which increases the potency of Biolysis and Broil 4. At level 96, just like the other healers, you will get an upgrade to your AoE heal, in this case Succor. You get Succor Mastery, which upgrades Succor to Concitation, which doesn't increase its cure potency, but rather its barrier size from 160% to 180% of the HP restored. At level 98, you get Enhanced Recitation, which reduces the recitation cooldown from 90 seconds to 60 seconds, which is pretty good. And at level 100, your big healing ability unlocks Seraphism, gradually restoring the HP of self and all part members within a radius of 50 yams. It also changes Aquilodium to Manifestation and Concitation to Accession, which increases their cure potency by 20%. And that's all the changes to Scholar. Moving on to Astro, most likely the reason you're here, the biggest changes that you're waiting to see. And the changes you're waiting to see is definitely all the dot changes. You're goddamn right. Combust is now upgraded from 40 potency to 50 potency. Bet you weren't expecting that. Combust 2 from 50 to 60 potency, and Combust 3 has been upgraded from 55 to 65 potency. So Astro has been given a buff in all previous content, which probably implies that yes, their new card system will be making them a little bit weaker. Furthermore, Aspected Helios is now obtained from your level 40 job quest rather than just at level 42. Not a big change, nor one that probably affects anyone in any way, but you get it from a job quest now, so do your job quests, everyone. And finally, before the card system, Divination has had its duration extended from 15 seconds to 20, which you'll see with a lot of other classes with raid-wide buffs as well. Alright, the new card system. What has actually happened to our dear Astrologian? Well, it's lost Draw, Play, Redraw, Astrodyne, and Crown Play. It now has Astral and Umbral Draw, which have a 60-second cooldown, and upon the use of Astral Draw, you will get 3 cards. These cards will always be the Balance, the Arrow, and the Spire. Now, this sounds promising until you realize the nerf. Only this first card will buff the damage of a party member. The other two do not. So what do they do? Well, the balance, being the first card, increases a melee or tank's damage by 6% for 15 seconds as usual. The arrow, on the other hand, now increases HP recovery via healing actions for a party member or self by 10%, and the spire now creates a shield equivalent to a 400 potency heal. So they no longer buff the damage of your party members. Then after the use of Astral Draw, the next use after the 60-second cooldown will be Umbral Draw. Umbral Draw will give the other 3 cards. Once again, these are predetermined and will not change. The first one, the Spear, gives a ranged DPS caster or healer a 6% increase to damage, and yes, this was previously a card that buffed melee DPS. The Bowl is now just pure mitigation, reducing the damage taken by a party member or self by 10%, and the Ewer is now a regen you can grant to someone with a 200 potency regen, which is quite a good regen. Finally, the last addition is that Astral Draw grants you Lord of the Crowns, a 400 potency off GCD, while Umbral Draw grants Lady of the Crowns, a 400 potency red-white heal. These can be used using Minor Arcana. So what does this mean? Well, firstly, you will always have Lord of the Crowns during your burst phase, thanks to it being on a 2-minute cooldown rotation. And you'll be able to give 2 party members damage ups during the burst phase by saving your Umbral Draw damage card, which is the Spear, to be used inside of the 20-second burst phase. At which point, after you use it, you can Astral Draw and then use the balance to give 2 DPS damage ups during the burst. As for the other 4 cards, you can use them if you please. There's no downside to not using them, there isn't much upside to using them either. If everyone's on full HP, then you might as well just not. They don't give you mana anymore per card. Now, the Astral or Umbral Draw just gives you a straight 2000 mana, so you don't even get a mana benefit from using them either. The upside to the predetermined cards is that you can map out your fight to know exactly what to use and when. There's no randomness to it, so you could know there's a tank buster at the 1.5 minute mark, and use the bowl in the tank every single time, which again, is just 10% mitigation. Since it's not random, you can give the tank the Ur for regen when they're getting auto-attacked every single time. You can use the arrow in someone and then the spire to make their shield 10% bigger. The cards still definitely have their uses, yet depending on the healing intensity of the fight, you may end up just not using them. I don't main healer, but I know that a lot have complained that healing is not apparent enough in fights to warrant this many healing actions, and this lack of damage options. So what do you think? Is this a good change or a bad one? I think it's definitely less preferable to Endwalker Astrologian in my eyes. However, I believe it will still be just as enjoyable in some ways. You still have a lot of GCDs to use and cards to play, just in different ways. However, if you want to talk about the worst loss by far, it's definitely Astrologian. You've lost your buff, your damage buff, your healing buff, your increased spell speed buff. I loved Astrologian, and that for me is a far worse loss than the damaging cards. In the other news, the cards now stack. Not that that helps anyone. Technically, you could give someone 2 damage buffs. Not sure why you ever would, since they work on 2 different roles, but you can. Alright, now that the card system's out of the way, let's move on to the level 90 plus changes. At level 92, just like all the other healers, you get a damaging attack. Divination gets upgraded to grant divining upon execution, which allows you to use the off GCD Oracle, which is a strong potency attack to use in your burst phase. At level 94, once again, like all the other healers, you get Enhanced Swift Cast, which reduces the cooldown from 60 seconds to 40 seconds, and you get Magic Mastery, which increases the potency of Combust Free and Fall Malefic. At level 96, you get Aspected Helios Mastery, doing the exact same thing as White Mage, where it upgrades Aspected Helios to Helios Conjunction, which just increases its regen potency by 25. At level 98, you get a 3rd stack of Essential Dignity, so now you shall never want for them. Well, the cooldown's the same, but they stack up to 3 now. And finally, at level 100, you get your big new heal, which comes after using Neutral Sec, which now grants Sun Touched upon execution, which allows you to use Sun Sign, a 10% mitigation for the whole party, which lasts 15 seconds. And that's all the changes for Astrologian. What do you think? Is the card system better now? Will you miss Astrologian as much as me? Anyway, on to Sage now. There have been no changes to Sage below level 90, so we'll just jump straight into the post level 90 stuff. You know the drill, level 92, you get a new damaging attack. In this case, it's an off-GCD Psyche. Or Psyche, I think it's Psyche. Which is a 600 potency weave, which you can use every 60 seconds. At level 94, you get, of course, Enhanced Swift Cast, reducing Swift Cast from 60 seconds to 40 seconds, and Magic Mastery, which, just like everyone else, increases the potency of Dosis 3, Toxicon 2, and Pneuma. However, also at level 94, you get Enhanced Soteria, which reduces the recast time on Soteria to 60 seconds from 90. At level 96, you get Eucrasian Prognosis Mastery, which upgrades Eucrasian Prognosis to Eucrasian Prognosis 2, increasing the shield size from 320 to 360. And then at level 98, you get Enhanced Physis 2, which extends the effect, increasing HP recovered by healing actions to 15 seconds from 10 seconds. And then finally, your level 100 ability, Philosophia, which increases healing magic potency by 20%, and which grants everyone Eudaimonia, which, by the sounds of it, is a cardia for everyone for 20 seconds, which sounds pretty damn cool. That's all for Sage. So, that's all the healer changes. I know there's been a lot of controversy with healers in the game, thinking it's brain dead or too easy. I've not played healer enough at low-end or high-end content to be able to add my take on it though. I think the main change healers want to see is either make their damage rotation not just spamming one button, like something like tanks have perhaps, because they still have all their mitigation abilities, which some would say is just as important as actually healing, if not more important, but yet they still have a whole damaging rotation to go alongside that. However, the damage rotation hasn't really changed for any healers. They all now have one new damaging ability or spell, which you can either use once or a couple of times every 2 minutes, but other than that, you're still spamming one button the majority of the time. And the other change they could see is with the healing intensity of the fights. If the fights in Dawntrail are healing intensive to the point where you're not just spamming Glare with a bunch of off-GCD heals for 10 minutes, then that might help too. I don't know. I've not looked into it. I don't really heal. I say that of all my healers at level 90, but you know, Endwalker's been out for a while. So what do you think? Are these damaging abilities enough? Would you have liked to see more done to the classes? Let me know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for future Final Fantasy content and more coverage on all the other class changes in the future. And then finally, your level 100 ability, Philosophia, which increases healing magic potency by 20% and grants everyone Eudaimonia, which grants everyone Eudaimonia,